يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Another deed done by the heart as part of the Islamic education to learning how to establish these acts of worship with our hearts is al-wara'. And al-wara' is a word that for the English-speaking people might be difficult to say with the ayn at the end, and also translating the meaning of it. Because really, as we would see inshallah ta'ala, the word al-wara', it's an extra cautiousness, that a person is cautious when it comes to what might harm him in the day of judgment. So as we know that there is the halal is halal, what's permissible, what's forbidden is forbidden, clearly stated in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are things in between which is doubtful matters that we're supposed to be cautious and to stay away from it, as we will be explaining inshallah ta'ala. But also when it comes to the haram, something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade on us to do, we have to have that cautiousness that we stay away from it so that we don't fall into what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade. So this is something related to the foundation of the deen, and it's a sign that a person has taqwa and piety and goodness when a person is conscious, is aware of things can be harmful to one's iman, one's faith, one's religion, so he stay away from it. And that's why the early generations of Islam, they used to learn it, how to have the wara' from when it comes to matters of wealth, when it comes to falling into the haram, dealing with contracts and dealing with bribery and all kinds of things that can lead the person to attain haram and so on. So the word al-wara' linguistically comes from something that a person would feel of unease inside of oneself. That means he is unease with doing something. But when it comes to the religious meaning of it is to stay away from what might be harmful for you in the hereafter. So that requires knowledge of what's harmful in the day of judgment. So to stay away from it. And sometimes a person might stay away from something that is permissible out of the fear that it can lead them to what's not permissible. And that also requires knowledge, or to ask the people of knowledge, so that the person doesn't fall into any extreme way of doing things. And there are hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that talks about the subject, and it's a deed done by the heart, and it's a part of the ta'zeem or exalting the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, لا يبلغ العبد أن يكون من المتقين حتى يدع ما لا بأس به حذرا لما به بأس. Which means a slave of Allah would never be able to attain or to be among the people of taqwa in the perfect sense, those of piety and so on, till they leave what is no harm if a person do it, out of the fear of what's harmful. So you fear that you would fall into something harmful to your deen, to your iman. And there's a way to attain that haram through something that is permissible. That means you stay away from being in a place, for example, that would lead you to fall into haram. This can be in general terms for everybody, and the same thing can be applied for some individuals versus others. And also the Prophet ﷺ said of, this one of the hadiths is foundation of the deen, دَعْ مَا يَرِيبُكَ إِلَى مَا لَا يَرِيبُكَ. Leave what is doubtful for you to what you have no doubt whatsoever. So be at ease with yourself. When you're about to do something, but you're in doubt. Imagine in the worldly sense of things. If someone, for example, is worried that if he goes to that place, it's a dangerous place, and if he goes to that place, people might kill him, for example. Then what's the solution? Don't go to that place. If you don't have to, don't go there. So you relieve yourself from the stress and the worries and so on. So what's more important is what matters of deen. If you know that something might cause you harm when it comes to your ubudiyyah to Allah, stay away from it. And of course, this is something to be attained with knowledge, as we heard. And the beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he described the affairs of the people when it comes to the halal and the haram. In the halal bayyin wal haram bayyin. That indeed halal is clear and haram is clear. And clear, that means what? Stay away from the haram and do what's halal. But between them are umur mushtabihat. Or mushabbihat, that means things are doubtful, not clear to everyone. لا يعلمها كثير من الناس. Most of the people, or many of the people, they do not know it. So what to do with it? To stay away from it. فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever stays away from the doubtful matters, he protects his religion, he protects his honor and dignity. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ. And whoever falls into the doubtful matters, وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. He would fall into the haram. And the Prophet ﷺ, he gave the example of a shepherd that he is taking his animals closer to the hima, which is the sanctuary area of a king or a president or so. Everyone that is a king or a president, he has an area where it's nobody is to walk into that place. They have fences and things like this. So that shepherd has his animals there. If one of them jumps in there, right, that means he's in trouble. So he would stay away from what he's been forbidden from. He would have a buffer zone between him and what he's been forbidden to be in, out of the fear that something can happen without his control. So the same thing, we are weak as human beings. So you get yourself closer to the haram, it's very easy to fall into the haram. And one of the beautiful hadith that it's a way of life is the Prophet ﷺ, he said, من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. From the goodness of the deen and the Islam of a person is to stay away from what does not concern you. Whether it's from other individuals, stay away from looking at people, what they have, what they've purchased, your neighbors, this and that. Stay away from it, does not concern you, right? And at the same time, to stay away from what does not concern you in the hereafter is of no benefit whatsoever. So this is how to attain this important act of worship, which is one of the conditions of al-Iman, is to stay away from what is harmful. So as one of the early generations of al-Islam, he gave the example of al-Iman as being a tree. The foundation of it, the root of it is ash-shahada, which makes a person among the believers. And then the fruits and the produce of it is al-wara', is this wara', is to be cautious, is to, the Iman affects you. Before you make a decision, before you do anything, is it something harmful or something benefiting to my religion? And there's no goodness in a tree that does not have a fruit to it. And there's no goodness in a person that doesn't have wara'. So whatever comes along, he just go by the flow or whatever. This is not a good thing for a person's one's Iman. So, and that's, statements of the early generations of Islam were upon this. And that's why they used to be with the acts of worship, with their salah, with the night prayer, but also buying and selling. How are they in their transactions? And people, this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, do not look at someone's prayer or someone's fasting, but rather look at how ila sidqi hadithi, how truthful he is when he speaks, and how he is trustworthy when he is entrusted with something. Wa ila wara'ihi, and he is wara' if he is left alone to do whatever he wants. So, and Umar radiallahu anhu, he said the same thing. إن الدين ليس بالطنطنة من آخر الليل ولكن الدين الورع. The deen is not what a person would do at the last part of the night, but rather the deen is al-wara'. It does not belittle the acts of worship. We need to do that. They used to do both. But if a person is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on, then that should show in one's transactions and one's dealing with others and so on. So many statements from the early generations of Islam talked about this subject, and that's why when we go through what they've mentioned and what they were upon in this, it helps us to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the early generations of Islam, when he said that you would meet two individuals, one of them, he fasts more, he makes more of optional salah and charity and so on, but someone else might be better than him and far better than him. So they said to him, how is that? How can that be when we know the virtues of the optional salah and so on? He said, أَشَدُّهُمَا وَرَعًا لِلَّهِ عَنْ مَحَارِمِهِ. He has more of that wara', this cautiousness in his heart when it comes to what Allah forbade. So again, it's how important it is, this matter in the heart, that you're having this consciousness. You're extremely cautious from falling into the haram. Haram, forbidden acts, it's the worst thing that can ever happen. So some people, they're at ease with it, to please other individuals, to please other human beings. You would find, for example, someone making salah, qiyamul layl, recites lots of Quran, making fast and so on. But then when he's invited to a wedding party, for example, that's mixed gatherings and music and so on, he becomes embarrassed that he would make the people displeased with him, so he would go and compromise his religion. There's no wara' of the haram. The wara' when it comes to being cautious away from haram is not there in the heart. This is basically what is meant. Or when it comes to buying and selling, he's at ease to cheat or to deceive people and the like of this. So that's why the subject of al-wara' is such an important thing, especially with matters of doubtful matters. And it's easy sometimes to do option acts of worship, but it's difficult for a person to stay away from what the haram and what leads even to the haram. And as we heard in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, so al-wara' is such an important thing. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the famous story that how he was in a level where the Prophet ﷺ told him clearly in his life that he is from the people of Jannah, and he's the best of this ummah after the Prophet ﷺ. And he had someone that he would bring for him goodness and servants, and so he was a servant bringing him some good things. And one time he came with some food, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he ate from it. So this ghulam, or this young boy, he said to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, do you know what did you just eat? He said, what is it? What did you just eat? He said that he did some kahana when he was in times of jahiliyyah, sorcery or fortune telling or something like this. And I wasn't good at it. So someone now, he saw me, so he gave me as a recompense of what I did. So he already ate it, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. But once he heard this, he made himself throw it out so that he does not have anything that is haram inside of his stomach. So it shows the importance of it, and to be away from what is haram. That's one of the great means to establish the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, next time. So continuing the subject of al-wara' next time, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع،
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.